Today's guest is Daniel Dickeson, a certified CFO and the founder of Atlas CFO Solutions, a firm that delivers high impact advisory services to small healthcare businesses. But Daniel's not your typical finance guy. He doesn't just look at numbers, he listens to what they say. With a gift for translating financial chaos into clarity, Daniel helps business owners reclaim control, not just of their companies, but of their lives. In this episode, you'll hear how he turned a struggling salon into a thriving operation, why cash flow, not profit, is the real king, and how he's mentoring the next generation of entrepreneurs, all while proving that even the most complex businesses can work for the owner, not the other way around. Daniel, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you on. I'm really looking forward to this one.
Thank you, James. I appreciate it. I'm great. Happy to be here.
Awesome, awesome. Let's get right into it. So I would love to hear a little bit about how things got started on your side, a little bit about your story. So let's go back to the beginning. How did you get into finance and what inspired you to specialize in healthcare businesses?
Oh, that's it. It's an interesting story and always makes me laugh when I tell it. When I was in high school, I actually wanted to go to school for English literature to go to college. And my father was vehemently opposed to it. He felt like and there's nothing against anybody who's an English lit major. He just felt like it wasn't going to be applicable for me for a career. I would end up, in his words, either being a writer or a teacher. And I have no problem with either of those because I think it's outstanding. But I sat down and said, okay, let me think of where I want to go with a career. And it's very hard when you're 17, 18 years old. And I sat down with my guidance counselor and he said, have you thought about business? And I said, I did, in fact, because my mother and my stepfather both owned a convenience store. So I had been exposed to the entrepreneurial side of things early on. I had been working at the convenience store since I was in sixth grade. And that made me decide, I think I'm going to go into finance, some type of thing. When I asked my guidance counselor, he said, you need to pick what you're going to declare for a major. And I had no idea. I understood I took some business courses in high school, but nothing, elaborate. What would be the difference between, let's say, going and getting a degree in finance versus accounting versus economics? And through his guidance, thank goodness, he said, you'll probably want to look at accounting, gives you an overall snapshot and not as sectored. So that's what I did. So I went to Florida State University and I graduated with a bachelor's and a master's degree in accounting. And then later on, I went to Davenport University and earned an MBA. I decided to go into accounting more than anything because I'm fascinated with the operation of a business from every aspect of it. Uh, Owning my own business now, I think I'm more entrenched in the sales and marketing things and trying to understand that enigma than anything else. But to say to yourself, you want to analyze how a company makes money. What does it need to do and all the mechanisms that go into place? So that's in essence, I don't know if you want me to walk through my career, but I did the standard. I went to work and ended up because I worked for a wealth management firm, and then I did that for about 2 years. It wasn't exactly what I wanted to do, and then I went to work for Hess Healthcare, which was in New York. It gave me the opportunity to move up. I moved up through the ranks. I've spent about 14 years there, became the controller, and then in March of 2010, I became the CFO, and I was the CFO from March of 2010 until February 2016. Then I went to I had the opportunity to be the CFO for a seafood distribution company in New England, Southstream Seafoods, and I had a great opportunity there, worked with some fantastic guys. And it was a completely different break from what I was doing because I'd spent the bulk of my career in healthcare. So it was giving me an opportunity to kind of do something different and seeing things on the logistics, distribution, operations side, dealing a lot with inventory. And it was phenomenal. I learned so much over the time. And then I just kind of I won't say outgrew that because it was still a phenomenal opportunity. I will always be grateful for every boss and every opportunity I've ever had. But I decided I'm 50 years old and I hit a point in my life where I wanted to try to do something different. So I decided did something crazy, was I'm going to start my own business, and hence founding Atlas CFO Solutions, where I wanted to be able to try to help smaller businesses and really overcome the obstacles, particularly financially, that they seem to endure, and making my niche healthcare, because that is really where my strength and background is, or at least where I feel the most comfortable. So that was, that's been the bulk of my career now. And then it's just, helping clients now and trying to meet new people and network and grow and get your name out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Awesome. That's so cool. You said your work is more than just the numbers. It
yes.
helps tell a story. So what do you mean by that exactly?
Oh yeah.
I've asked this question to a lot of people in the past, but I'm always curious to hear the unique perspective of who we have on the show or who I'm speaking to, because there's a lot of different ways to go about
Yeah.
that, right? So I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah. Accounting there's a fascinating side of accounting for those of us who enjoy it. But for the people who are more of, let's say, non-accountants, the first thing they'll say is, "Oh, you love numbers." Yes, I did very well in math, and it is very math based. So that's not a misnomer or anything like that. But I often say to people, because I love that moment when they have a light bulb moment, where they see it's not financial jargon, it's not a KPI, but how it actually worked for them in their business. So what I often say to them is, it's a language. It's like we're learning a language. And for those of us who speak one language or two languages, whatever it may be, it's like learning a language. And when you know how to read it. And then what's beautiful about accounting is we created these standards so that it's applicable, whether it's generally accepted accounting principles or whatever, but you can apply them universally across businesses.
That's
And
cool.
when I'm able to say that, yeah, to the business owners, um, one of the gentlemen I worked with when he was trying to understand inventory, and I went back to having a professor I had in college who referenced, when you have raw materials and you have work in progress and then finished goods, he used the example of a cake. And I know probably a lot of people have heard this, but it's really more of an accounting, but you're understanding the principle behind how does something become what it is. And it's always good when you can use examples or visualizations to help somebody see the bigger picture. That is singularly the thing I enjoy the most, is when you can turn around and say to somebody, let's say they're looking at the receivables. So in healthcare, one of the biggest challenges that they face is their claims are being held up either through the third party providers, right? The insurance companies, or it's being denied straight out. So they're not getting their money. And you want to walk back with them, the revenue cycle management, and help them to understand, where does this trip up? And it's a cause and effect that goes all the way through. But when they see it and when they get it, and then their cash starts coming in faster. So what does that help them do? Capitalize on opportunities for their business, for their growth, also for themselves. Every business owner, we start out with the intent. It's not necessarily greedy, but you want to feel like you're doing this for something, a return on your own investment or whatever it may be. And you want to be able to have some standard of living that allows you to take and provide for your family or yourself and do things like that. And that's the enjoyment that I get. I'm sure we'll touch on it, but the example I referenced when you and I probably spoke previously about one of my clients that owns a salon, and it's really not in the healthcare. I took this woman on as a favor,
You must
but
have
I'll
a
get into
list. You must
that.
have a list of my questions, because I was going to
No,
get into that
I
one.
wish I did.
Yeah, yeah. No,
No, no.
but yeah, I would love to hear because when we were speaking before about a really cool win you had for
Yes.
one of your salon clients, and how you helped, look at her numbers, and you helped her triple her take home pay, and I think it was what, just
Yeah.
around a year. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. A
Massive
little under a
accomplishment.
year.
Would love to
Yeah.
hear
It
a little
was.
bit more about how you helped her approach that transformation, and what were some of the biggest levers you pulled for her.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it's ironic because when I always say, my niche is healthcare, and this has nothing to do with healthcare. So it's a friend of the family, and she was in a very difficult spot. If I may, I don't want to share too much. It is her personal story for hers that she's going through, but I will share just some brushstrokes,
For sure.
so the audience understands. She was married. She has two daughters. One daughter is entering college. One is just about to finish high school. Uh, and her husband unfortunately passed away 2 years ago. She owned a salon and she self-admittedly, her name is Melinda, she ran the business almost like a hobby at the time. It was something she did. She went to school for. She was very good at it, but she was not the breadwinner. And now she found herself in a situation where she needs to provide for her girls. And that became a whole different story. And I did not know her. It was referred to, she was referred to me. We had a number of conversations, and I said, I think I can help you. So I looked at her books. I looked at her, particularly what I was trying to understand. I always look for is inefficiencies. How can we increase cash flow? That's what she's struggling with. So what are the drivers of the cash flow? What do we want to focus on? Some of your key drivers of cash flow that you want to look at is, now for her, it's a point of sale, so she has no accounts receivable. But we're going to look at how she's paying her vendors, right? We're going to look at her inventory. Now, there's two types of inventory that she has. There's inventory that she uses for her actual treatments for her clients, and then there's inventory that she actually sells. So what we discovered was, sadly, she's a very super sweet woman. She's too much to too many people. I guess that's the easiest way to say it. She's trying to please all the people that she has working for her. So each person will only use a certain type of product. And that's just for what they use on their clients and stuff because they're renting out the space in the booth. And what it led to was her having an exorbitant amount of inventory in hand that was not for resale. Right away, I said to him, well, we need to reduce that because it's tying up your working capital. The other thing is that she had not made any she was afraid to, in fact, to increase her rates, the fees that she was charging, because she was so afraid of losing the clientele that she had because she needed every dollar that she needed. And I said, okay, what we can do is we can test it by making adjustments to the pricing strategy. Incrementally, very small. It does not have to, and you do it over time, but it'll get you there faster. So we did that. And in combination with obviously tightening cost management. Let's take a look at all your expenses, what's going through, what do you truly need, what can you eliminate? And in that term, she was taking home roughly about $36,000 a year for her working full time. And I'm going to share this with you because it's probably something that means the most to me. She was working 7 days a week, barring holidays. Could not take a day off, did not take a vacation, anything. And when I was on the call with her, I could actually see that she was burned out. People talk about burnout, and it is, in fact, something that happens. I could see her expression on her face. And then I saw when we walked through, and the next meeting that I had with her, when I had a forecast for her, and I showed her if you reduce your inventory, if you increase your pricing, if you reduce your costs in this area right here, this is the result you'll have. And I believe it was 11 months. And it was over 90,000 that she would be taking home. And then I projected one thing extra for her. I did a projection for 5 years for her, a forecast out, because I wanted her to see the big picture. If you continue on this course, this is where we'll be in year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. And by year 3, she should be close to 130 or more thousand. And that's without trying to scale. Because that's the next thing I said to her is what you want to do is you now want to look at what are the other avenues that you can do for supplemental income to grow the company. She actually cried. And that was the most touching moment I have ever had in my entire career. That night I went home, and when I went to bed, and I know everybody says this or it sounds silly, but it was like, when you know that you can make a fundamental difference in somebody's life, it's the greatest feeling you can have. Or for me personally, I don't want to speak for anybody else, but yes, we want to make money, but I'm also interested in truly helping people. Like I shared, there's a gentleman I'm helping for free because he's in such a difficult situation, but his business is one that he helps men and women who are in law enforcement that deal with traumatic events. All right. And I shared with you that my middle son he was in the military. He's no longer anymore. And there was a personal thing that resonated to me. And wanting to be able to help him when he gave me one story about he had a police officer that he was working with. He's a doctor in psychology. And the police officer was trying to deal with he had taken a two-year-old baby from the hands of his father who had committed suicide. And the descriptive, I don't want to go into it or make this a melancholy podcast, but his description touched me so deeply. I said, you know what? I'm going to help you for free. And I think we need to have more focus on that. Not necessarily like doing things for free. And a lot of accountants are going to jump all over me for saying that because, poo-poo to that thought process. But you want to help people. For example, like I said, I'm a mentor at SCORE, I told you previously, and that's helps people for free. It's a great program. But the idea, driving, underlining everything is making a positive impact on people's lives. And if you can do that and make money, every day you wake up and you're winning. That's my own feeling.
I appreciate you sharing that so much, Daniel, both of those stories, because I did want to ask you about that, and I'm happy you brought that up because when we were initially speaking, that really resonated with me, and it was a big reason why I wanted to have you come on the podcast. You have
Thank
so
you.
much to share, and just the way you go about helping your clients, helping people who aren't even, well, I want to say clients, but not even paid clients. Like you
Yeah.
connected with someone and you're like, look, I just want to help you out. And I'm a firm believer. I was taught, and mentors always tell me, like, if you take care of everyone else, they'll take care of your business. So I think you're a prime example of that, and I think it's really cool what you're doing. So
Thank
yeah,
you.
that's
Appreciate it.
that's awesome. Um, so tell me a little bit about your success, and what does that finally look like when a business is works the business works for the owner instead of the other way around.
Oh, yeah. So that's a key component. Like everybody, one of the questions I'll actually ask somebody during what we call a right fit meeting, and we're trying to determine if we are right to work with each other. But you want to ask that person to define how they view success because success is subjective.
Yeah.
Success to one individual may be, hey, I'm driving a Lamborghini. Success to another person may be, for example, Melinda, I want to be able to put my daughters through college. I don't want to lose my home. Success is me making enough money to support my family, right? So I always say, I need to ask that question because I need to understand how that person views their success. For me, when I look at that success and the turning point, it's success can be measured in numbers and ratios. It can be measured in milestones. If you're asking me personally in my business, my first goal was to replace the salary that I was making as a CFO with client-based, having that. To me, I feel like everything above and beyond that is great because I'm doing what I love, making what I was making, and that's the to me the first, and then the second part of success will be to grow to a firm, and on a personal level for clients, the success is watching them, as you mentioned earlier, when they're not having to work 60, 70 hours a week. By that means we help them implement the right infrastructure so that they can start to create almost like an org chart where they've got people that are handling things that they handle these things. It's that buffer to give them free time to either focus on growing the business. Maybe they have their own personal time that they need to be able to go take a vacation or do things like that. And I take it in a little bit of a tiered approach. I'm working with a woman right now who owns a physical therapy practice. She's an amazing person, and she's going through that right now. She works all the time from 6:30 in the morning till 11 o'clock at night. Very, very intelligent, hardworking, driven woman. And I said, okay, here's what we need to do. And I'm just starting out working with her. I said, the first thing we need to do is look at all the drivers of your cash flow. We need to increase your cash flow. Then we also need to look at the efficiencies in your organization. Conversely, meaning let's look at the overhead analysis. In healthcare, more often than not, you have a doctor who they're extremely intelligent individuals, very driven, okay, but they did not go to school for accounting or finance. So they're excellent at what they do in their specialty. In this case, the woman being a physical therapist and extremely intelligent, but they're not schooled on the financial side of things, right? So they need somebody's help. So you come in and say, okay, they want to be all things to all people. So it's like, well, they hire this person and they hire this person. And then they, for example, this woman has a bookkeeper. She has a CPA who does her tax returns. She has a business coach who's charging her $1,000 a month and not giving her any return on her investment. She has a medical biller who's charging her 5.5% of her revenue for all the billing. I told her, after looking at the model, I said, you're more profitable than you even realize because you're not following ASC 606, which is alignment with your revenue. Okay, recognizing revenue when it's earned and it's through contract and so forth. I said, and also, if we start to close your cash gap, you'll pay your vendors, you're going to increase your cash flow, you're going to be able to scale your business. Those metrics helps you to hire that right-hand person that you need so that you can have some time to yourself. And you will continue. You now create a model that you can scale and grow from. And it doesn't require you doing every facet. Like things that she would tell me she was doing, I would say, okay, so you could not hire, let's say, a virtual assistant or an assistant, and that person couldn't do that for you. And, or let's look at everybody's role in the company and see, is there a way to consolidate things? Because more often than times they're filling bodies and they want to get things done because they need that. And your overhead, your payroll, more than anything predominantly, can balloon and out of control. And then if you don't have an alignment with your revenue and your overhead and your expenses, there's the profitability issue, but there's also that issue of scalability and cash flow and other metrics. So once you get that alignment, like I just had a meeting with her yesterday and I could see the difference, the change,
That's
right?
cool.
She's getting it. She's understanding what we need to do when you start to map out. And that's, I guess, I'm sorry for the long-winded explanation, but if you create the structure for them, and that's what they need. They just need to have that structure, the blueprint to say, this is what we need to do. And I'm going to walk you through, and this is what I do as a business. And all of my colleagues, you take that person by the hand and you walk them through in a step-by-step process to say, when you do this, you do this, you do this, and you give them a cause and effect. If you do this, this is the result. And they can see it and it's measurable. And then over enough time, in the increments as we follow, and particularly all drivers of cash flow, you're making positive movements. So that's my measure of success, is to be able to watch them have that light bulb moment when the infrastructure is designed, then put in place, and then actually executed, and when it's executed and when it's working and they see it, the relief that comes over them.
That's awesome. That's a great answer. I'm curious, Daniel, what do you say to potential clients, or like what would be your word of advice for other CFOs out there? You're speaking to a prospect, you're speaking to a business owner. They've brought someone in before, and all the things you're sharing, like, hey, I know I can help you out here in these areas. This is what you need to do. And they're like, I had someone come in before, and like
Yeah.
it it didn't work. Or I didn't get anywhere. Like, and I I can actually do this. Like I have a track record. We have this. We've done this for someone else.
Yeah.
What do you say to them? Because I'm sure that's an objection everyone comes across, right?
Yes, it
I'm
is. It
curious to
is
hear
most
your take on that.
certainly. I've encountered it myself. Okay, that you're, as the oncoming CFO or potential CFO for them, you're battling some baggage that they may have, and rightfully so. Sadly, there are people in the industry who are not as professional as they should be, and I don't want to name any names or be a negative person about it, but it's painful to endure when you're on the other side and you know that you can help somebody and you want to help somebody and you're trying to explain it. So the advice that I give to the CFOs is to, number one, always remember that they are not financial experts. Okay, it's great that we have ratios. It's great that we have data rails and spreadsheets and dashboards and everything that can give them that. But you've got to make sure that they understand it, almost in a spoon feeding sense, because you have to crawl before you walk and walk before you run. Number two, be thorough. You have to be very thorough with what you do. Go through that with detailed, fine analysis. You can give them the summary, but you spend the time and then you create this summary to them so that they understand. And then you give them the option, no matter how, if they want to go as granular as possible and drill down to line items on a P&L or specific items within that, they can do that. Or if they want summary, I have clients that are very vast in how they want to handle things. Some don't want to get on a call, some want to get on a call weekly, some email me daily. It really depends on their need, but you have to understand it requires a level of emotional intelligence, if you will, to understand the client's needs. That's the thing. And understand that you have to work through those barriers. And how do you do that? By establishing trust. It's done incrementally. We don't meet people and instantly trust them, especially when you're talking about finance, right? You're asking for people for their financial statements, potentially looking at their tax returns. This is very, very personal information. And they're very guarded. It would be like, here in the United States, if you're walking up and asking somebody, hey, what's your social security number and how much do you make? These are things that we don't ask each other, right? So having that mindset and having that in place to be very sensitive to the person's needs, be very responsive to everything that they ask, and be thorough in understanding. And obviously, you do need to understand what you're doing. I think there are some people who take on the task of thinking that they, went and got a certificate to be a bookkeeper or something. There is a certain level of experience and education that goes into being a CFO that you actually need to be able to understand tax, you understand compliance, you understand financial analysis and planning and so forth. It's a little bit different. That's no knock against anybody in the bookkeeping industry because they do a phenomenal job. It's crucial aspect of every business. But for example, a client I was just saying to you earlier, she's facing this difficulty because her bookkeeper did not understand ASC 606. And I said to her, you're more profitable than you realize right off the bat because they're booking revenue in a cash basis. And you're booking it when the service is provided. That's when your revenue should be booked. As I just give you an example, right? And that right there alone made a dynamic shift in just her P&L. So now it turns around and say, okay, now if we look at this and you want to expand your business, one of the things you need to do is have 2 years of profits, and you need to be able to demonstrate to a lending institution that you can in fact support a line of credit if that's what you're looking to obtain, right, to help you grow. So these are the metrics that you want to have in place. So that's the advice. I know that it's not like, because it's subjective and each person is, you're dealing with an individual and every individual is different. But I think the most important thing is to understand your client's needs. Read their emotion, understand what they're thinking and feeling, and be cognizant of the fact that they've been through some trials and tribulations. And I think if you're able to do that, and you're there almost on a therapeutic sense for them to just talk. Sometimes some people just need to say, not expecting you to fix a problem, just, hey, I'm dealing with this and this, and they talk, and then they realize I didn't have to do anything. They just needed a moment to, if you want to say vent or just kind of express their emotions of what they're going through. We're business owners, I'm sure you know this very well. They wear so many different hats. And that can be so overwhelming. They're trying to be sales, they're trying to be marketing, they're trying to be finance, they're trying to be operations, they're trying to be all things at once. And particularly if you don't have specific experience in that, it can be challenging. It can be like I talked with you previously. Marketing is not my strength. I've worked with marketing for years and years and years, but never like as a specific to what I need to do for my business type of thing. So yeah, that's the advice I would give to any CFO that's trying to learn. Just focus on that.
Awesome. That's great. I got a couple kind of lightning round questions for you,
Cool.
and
All right.
we'll wrap this up. So there's a handful here. Um, Off the top, what's the
Okay.
number one number every business owner needs to know, like the back of their hand?
Gross profit, cash flow, and gross profit. If I had to say one and two, you want to know your cash. If you want to drill down even more granular, know your burn rate. Know what your cash balance is and how far it can sustain you. That would
Perfect.
be.
Perfect. Most underrated financial strategy you wish more people used.
That's a good question. I think that to focus on your margins, to really truly like, for example, in being that healthcare, to your service, what's your cost of service and what are you getting per your revenue? Because that's going to drive your business. If you look at the key drivers of cash flow, it's your working capital, AR, AP. It can be your gross profit and your EBITDA, and look at those. But really, like, manage those lines, manage your expenses. And I think people tend to think they do, but then when you show them, they realize they're not.
Okay. What's one habit that's made the biggest difference in your career?
Actually, it's a funny habit. Um, I'm a huge list maker. Okay. I create lists and then sub lists. But why is because I like to be very structured in everything that I do. So, for example, I have a structure of how I approach every single day from I get up early in the morning and I work out. And after that, I'm at my desk at a certain period of time. And for a certain period of time, what I found that's worked for me is to do it in blocks of time. Like from this time to this time, I'm going to post on social media and build my presence on. From this time to this time, I'm going to answer client emails. From this time to this time, I may make phone calls. From this time to this time, I'm going to work on the client caseload. It's having structure. And I learned that very early on, particularly fine-tuned it when I went for my MBA because I did my entire MBA online. And this was many, many years ago. I graduated in 2010 with my MBA. And so it was on the forefront of the online process that things were coming through. And you really, in order to be successful and do well, and I graduated with a 3.7, you have to have structure. So I learned early on and I've implemented throughout is structure. It's really not applicable anything to accounting per se. It's just in general in life. And I apply that inside my business life, professional, and my personal life.
Awesome.
Might be
What
boring to people.
what is the I'm trying to think how I want to word this exact too, and I don't want to potentially word it wrong for you. What would be the strongest piece or the best piece of advice you would give to the listeners or listener? There might not even be a lot. We'll see.
Okay,
To the
so
listener, what's the best piece of advice you give to the listener out
to
there?
to the listener, if you are thinking about starting a business, right? You definitely want to try to make yourself aware of creating a business model, understanding the pricing that you would do, your pricing strategy, understanding your market, like who you're going to be selling to and how viable that market is, right? To the individuals that already own a business. It's again going back to you're going to look at your margins because you're focusing on the two key components. Number one, your revenue and what you're getting for your revenue dollars. Number two, your costs. What are your costs? Because everything left is what's going to be left for you in the end, right? After you're paying your expenses, your net profit, it goes to. So I would tell them that that's what you want to focus on. And more importantly, I guess I'd go back to saying anything is if for the person who's thinking about doing something or whatever, try to pick something that you love. I know people say that and it sounds almost like a cliche, but I tell you this, best move that I've ever made in my life, starting my own business to be able to help people. And you really do wake up every day happy to go to work. You wake up every day saying, this doesn't feel like work. This is one win after another. And I'm not saying I haven't had my setbacks. I have. But yeah, I would say, to do what you love and you're passionate about.
That's awesome. Okay. Last one here in this rapid fire round. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Oh, wow, that's a tough one because I've had so many I've had some great mentors in my life, phenomenal individuals. I would say, um, that's a hard one. You got me on that one. I'd have, give me a moment just to
I
think
know
of
it's
that
going to be
because,
good because we kind of we tripped you up a bit. So I know there's going to be a good piece coming.
uh, yeah, I mean, see, it's the problem is I've been, um, at the sea level for so long now, it's a little bit harder. So I'm going back earlier in my career when I really needed, I think probably one of the best pieces of advice I had actually had to do with managing.
Okay.
Now that I think about it, I had a manager who had said to me, it was, yeah, you know what? I'll go with this because I was first promoted to being a controller. And I was so nervous about I'm a manager and I have all these employees under me and I had never managed before and I was very young. It was in 2003 and I was so concerned with what people would think of me and would I be a good manager and how effective would I be? So I sat down with my manager and I had a great relationship. So I had this ability to go and say, I'm feeling some reservations or some anxiety over this situation. In this case, it being a manager. I had because you got to remember, I was managing people, and some of them were more than twice my age, and they were resentful. Some people had gotten passed over. I moved up maybe faster than they did. Uh, and so there may be a little bit of animosity. And he said to me, Dan, the hardest thing that you're ever going to do in your career, and I thought he was going to say was the accounting, learning this reg, this, that, applying this principle. And he said it has nothing to do with accounting. He said it's going to be to do with managing people. And he said, my experience, and he was an older gentleman. So he's at this time, I'm young, I'm 27 years old. He's an older gentleman telling a younger gentleman. He said, it's like herding cats. Each person, all well do, they have good intentions, but they all have their own agenda. They're trying to achieve either it's, trying to get something done in their job or what they're trying to do and so forth. And he said, you're trying to bring them all together to get them herded and in the right direction. And i.e., looking back now, it's the CEO has a vision, right? They create this vision and their job is not to force it on people. It's to get them to buy into that. And that's what he was telling me. As a manager, don't come in draconian, hitting a gavel and saying, this is because I said so, which I wouldn't do anyway. That's not my manager style. But that process of getting people to buy into what you're doing and where you're going, help them see your vision. And you've created a team in total or almost total alignment. It's not always in alignment, but in alignment. And I thought, looking back now, that paid me huge dividends throughout my career because, being a manager, you want to make sure your employees are happy. We went through the pandemic and there was the quiet quitting and resignation revolution, and there was a titanic shift in employment. So even as a manager, when you're trying to hire people, they'll coming in, it was a completely different personality or mindset for some employees entering the workforce or re-entering. And it was now you have to be even twice as cognizant of how people are being treated. Are they satisfied with their work? Are they, being compensated correctly and everything? So the management aspect of it was a big piece. It really, sadly, I don't mean it to not have anything to do with accounting, but
Oh no, it's perfect.
that was a huge, especially as I was a young guy at the time. I was so young that it meant a lot to be able to have somebody as a mentor.
That's awesome. That's so good. Last one, Dan, where can people get
Yep.
in touch with you? They want to continue the conversation. They
Oh,
want to learn a little bit more about you. How can they reach you?
yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I'll give you my email address, which is Dan at atlascfosolutions.com. So it's Dan, Dan, at ATLASCFOSOLUTIONS.com. My number is 860-865-4924, and my website is atlascfosolutions.com. You can reach me any of those ways. I am on LinkedIn, Daniel Dickeson. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram as well. So I'm on the social medias and they're on my website as well. You can link up there and be happy to help anybody, even if they just need, to talk just as an assessment or try to they've got a couple of questions or anything. I have a very non-salesy approach to things. I just want to help. So
Amazing.
hopefully, yeah.
Amazing. We'll put all that in the show notes so people can get in touch. I highly recommend it. Dan, it's amazing what you're doing. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on the show, sharing a little bit more about your story and your background. I really enjoyed our conversation before getting you on the
Yeah.
show. I truly love what you're doing and how you just want to help other people. So again, thank you so much for coming on the CFO Chronicles.
Thank you, James. I super appreciate it. It was a pleasure to be here.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of CFO Chronicles, the secrets behind success. I hope you found value in today's conversation. As we wrap up, I'd love for you to do two things. First, make sure to subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. If you enjoyed today's discussion, please rate and review the show. It helps others discover the insights we share here. Second, if you're ready to take your business to the next level and attract the high-end clients you deserve, head over to accountingleadsnow.com or click the link in the show notes to book your strategy call. It's time to position yourself as the advisor your clients need. And don't forget, you can connect with me on LinkedIn to stay up to date on what's happening in the world of accounting and financial growth. We've got exciting topics coming up, so stay tuned for the next episode of CFO Chronicles. Until then, keep pushing forward. Your growth is just one strategic move away.
Thanks for listening to CFO Chronicles, the secrets behind success. We hope today's episode provided valuable strategies to help you attract more high-paying clients. Be sure to subscribe, follow, and share with fellow professionals. Connect with us on LinkedIn and leave a review or comment to join the conversation. Your feedback helps us bring you the best insights in finance and marketing. Until next time, keep striving for success and unlocking your business's potential.